All right, shalom, shalom, shalom once again.
Shalom.
Okay, we still in the feast of Hanukkah. Khan, we still in this feast.
Khan.
Okay, so it's about, what, 15 to 16 degrees out there, so the camp, y'all weren't going to try to touch the Most High's cold, right? Yeah, you can't deal with it. So today we just stayed inside and we held the Sabbath class, and different teachers, get up, a chance to do a lot of classes. So, I just wanted to put something together and continue the feast days, the new moon, and continue Hanukkah. And I want to talk about the Hasidics, the Hasidic Jews. Okay, we see them around in New York City. We see them everywhere, but we want to go into the history of the Hasidics, or the Hasidim, which means pious ones, or pious ones. Let's use that, which mean divine and righteous to the Most High and righteous in the law. Now, the Hasidians were a part of the revolt. They was connected to the Maccabees. Matter of fact, they was one of the first that started rebelling during the time of Antiochus IV Epiphanes. Antiochus IV Epiphanes was a Seleucid Greek, was a Syrian Greek. And that's who Judas Maccabees and his brothers, and Mattathias, his father, that's who they was fighting against. And the Hasidics, they were Israelites, okay? And they was a part of that battle, and they joined the Maccabees in this revolution. Khan? Now, when you see people out there, they putting up videos about the Hebrew Israelites in the streets and so forth. They're trying to, okay, this is how you deal with the Hebrew Israelites. Okay, the Hebrew Israelites is debunked. You're not going to stop the Most High's word.
That's right.
You're not going to stop, okay, regardless of how you look at the brothers in the streets and these different cities and so forth. You got Israelites camps popping up every minute.
Right.
So you're not going to stop the Most High's word, regardless of what you're trying to dig up or what labels or what you're trying to call the Hebrew Israelites. Okay, we are Hebrew Israelites from the different tribes, from the different 12 tribes. We're not black Hebrew Israelites.
Right.
Okay, that's a militant title. Okay, we're not militants. Okay, we are revolutionaries now.
Right.
And we are righteous revolutionaries for the Most High, the Supreme Being. Okay, so that black Hebrew Israelites, that is a militant title. And you're not going to be able to stop the brothers that's out there pushing this word, because the Spirit of the Most High, this is his program.
Right.
Okay, regardless of how you dislike or how they put this word out, the Most High is controlling this. You're not going to be able to debunk it. Okay, there are videos on where this is how you deal with the Hebrew Israelites. You don't know how to deal with the Hebrew Israelites because you got various camps out there. Every camp is a little bit different, so you don't know how to approach. Okay, the best way to approach is come with your scriptures and come learn. And you better know those scriptures. That's how to approach. Okay, so we're going to continue with the feast days, with Hanukkah, and we're going to talk about the Hasidics. Now, the Hasidics, or the Hasidians are mentioned in the book of the Maccabees. Now, let's talk about the Hasidic Jews, the Europeans. Now, the Hasidic Jews, or the Hasidic Judaism, emerged in Eastern Europe. Now, I got during the 17th century, and I got the 18th century. And I also got, they emerged out of Poland. Got me? Okay, now the Hasidics, Europeans, they brought Jewish mysticism. Now, the teachings that they brought, the teachings have been kept secret and restricted to a learned few. Okay, now that sounds like Ezra, what the book of Ezra recorded when Ezra and the brothers that was with Ezra, when they wrote all these books in a certain amount of days. And the Spirit of the Most High told Ezra, you publish these certain amount of books to the learned and the unlearned. But these 70 books, you keep these books for the person that can understand these books. Okay, for the real learned ones. These books they are mysticism. They are, well, I don't want to use mysticism. They are apocalyptic books, like your Enochs, like your the Testament of Moses, like the Apocalypse of Moses, the Apocalypse of Paul. Those are the books that Ezra was speaking about. Now, let's go to 2nd Ezra, the 14th chapter, and Yeshaya going to read from the 43rd verse to the 48th. This is in the Apocrypha, 2nd Ezra, the 14th chapter, from the 43rd verse to the 48th verse.
2nd Ezra, chapter 14 and verse 43.
Come on.
As for me, I spake in the day, and I held not my tongue by night. In 40 days they wrote 204 books.
You hear that? In 40 days, Ezra and his companions wrote 204 books. This was in 40 days. It takes a scholar, it takes an author a whole year to put his mind and get his information and to write a book. It takes him a whole year or maybe more. But Ezra, 204 days, or 204, in 40 days, 204 books. Salakia. Go ahead.
And it came to pass, when the 40 days were fulfilled, that the highest spake, saying, the first that thou hast written, publish openly, that the worthy and unworthy may read it.
Okay, I had said that the learned and the unlearned may read it, but the scriptures say the worthy and the unworthy may read it. Now, these books are the books of the law. This is the scripture, because the worthy and the unworthy can read this. These are the books of Moses, the Old Testament, okay? Basically, the Old Testament, okay? And it speaks about the law. The worthy and the unworthy, you read the law, okay? Read the Old Testament books, okay? Read on.
But keep the 70 last, that thou mayest deliver them only to such as be wise among the people.
Okay, the reason that I said the Old Testament, because the New Testament hadn't came into play yet. Okay, so Ezra said the Old Testament, and most of the apocalyptic books, a lot of them were part of the Old Testament. Read on.
For in them is the spring of understanding.
Okay, and it say, but keep the 70 books last, that thou mayest deliver them only to such that be wise amongst the people. Mm-hmm. And these 70 books, Ezra was talking about the apocalyptic books, okay, the apocryphal books. Okay, I did a class breaking down all these books. You can go on the internet and you can look that class up. I think that class was called Bible Books. If I'm not mistaken, Yeshua, you might have been up here reading for me. Okay. But we went into the Apocrypha and we broke down all the books that the worthy and the unworthy was to read. We broke down all those books. And then we went into the apocalyptic books, the 70 books as well. When y'all get a chance, pull up that class. I think it's still up. Okay. Now read that 47 verse.
For in them is the spring of understanding, the fountain of wisdom, and the stream of knowledge. And I did so. Okay, now when Ezra's speaking about these apocalyptic books and all these historical books, he said in them is the fountain of wisdom and the stream of knowledge. Now, today, a lot of those books have what we call a lot of bones in it. Okay, now bones are the lies. See, when we said, brother, read that book, man, but watch those bones. Deal with that meat. Eat that meat. That means get the truth out of there. Go deep into the book. Learn from the book. Learn the scripts of the book. Go deep into it. Eat the meat and throw the bones away. Throw the lies away. Be able to decide what's right and wrong. But you got to understand the Bible first before you attack these other books. Okay, you got to be rooted and you got to have a balance of understanding with the scriptures first. Okay, you have to know the book first, the word of the Most High first, before you go into these other apocalyptic books, and before you go into all these historical books. You got to know the history of the scriptures first, because when you read in the book of Daniel, when you read about the ram, the he-goat,
when you read about Nebuchadnezzar, that golden, that image of Nebuchadnezzar. Okay, when you read about his head of gold, when you read about the breastplate, when you read about the thigh, when you read about the legs, when you read about the toes. Okay, the scriptures is going to, the angel gave Daniel some breakdown. Okay, but you have to go into history books to get the years and the dates, and then what king was what. When it's speaking about the 10 toes, when it's speaking about the Persian Empire, you got to go into the history of Cyrus the Persian. You got to go into the history of Alexander the Great. You got to go into the history when Alexander died and when his kingdom was broken off into the 4 winds. You got to go into who was the 4 winds. It was his 4 generals. You got to go into the history of who they were. And then when you go into the scriptures and the history of who they were, you'll read, okay, well, it's 2 main players that was affiliated, that had contact with Israel, the kings of the north and the kings of the south. You had the Seleucids up north and the Ptolemies down in the south that's ruling from Egypt. The Seleucids ruling from Syria. So you're not going to get all that from the scriptures, especially when you go into Daniel, the 11th chapter. When you go into Daniel, the 11th chapter speaks about kings of the north, kings of the south. And when you read in a few of those verses, it speaks about Antiochus III, Antiochus IV, Epiphanes' father. And now Antiochus III, he had a affiliation with Hannibal. Hannibal was a part of his army. Now, that verse and that chapter, like Daniel 11 chapter, in that verse, it's not going to mention Hannibal's by name. It's not going to mention Antiochus III by name. But if you know the history, you go into the historical books, it would tell you about the wars that they fought. And when you go back into Daniel 11 chapter, it lines right up. Saying, oh, okay, there was the battle of Magnesia. Oh, okay, that Antiochus III lost that battle against the Romans. Okay, the history going to give you that because the history is going to go right back into what? The Most High's word. You got it? Okay, so we read 2nd Ezra, the 14th chapter, from the 43rd verse to the 48th verse. Now, like I said, the Hasidians, you got something for me, Yeshaya? The Hasidians were the rebels. They was revolting first. Okay, let's go to 1st Maccabees, the 2nd chapter. 1st Maccabees, the 2nd chapter, we're going to read from the 27th verse to the 46th verse. That's 1st Maccabees, the 2nd chapter, the 27th verse to the 46th verse.
1st Maccabees, chapter 2, verse 27.
Come on.
And Mattathias cried throughout the city with a loud voice, saying, Whosoever is zealous of the law and maintaineth the covenant, let him follow me.
Now, Mattathias was Judas Maccabee's father. Okay, Simon Maccabees, Jonathan, John, John Hyrcanus the first and second, they were also Maccabees, and they were called the Hashmonean dynasty. Okay, and that name came from Mattathias' ancestor, who was called Hashmon. Come on.
28. So he and his sons fled into the mountains and left all that they ever had in the city.
Okay, they had to get up out of there. So we look into the future is a time that we may have to do that. Okay, we can't be like Lot's wife, looking back and worrying about what you leaving. When it's time to go, you got to get up and go. And then you should be training your families, training your children, training your wife or your wives, training them that the time may be at hand that, hey, you may have to make a move like that. You may have to just get up and go. Hey, that's what the Maccabees did and the other Israelites that followed them. Read on.
Then many sought after justice, and judgment went down into the wilderness to dwell there, both they and their children, and their wives, and their cattle.
See there? Go ahead.
Because afflictions increased sore upon them.
Okay, they took the cattle, they got to eat. Okay, go ahead. And they might have been sacrificed, but they got to eat. Come on.
Now when it was told the king's servants and the host that was at Jerusalem, in the city of David, that certain men who had broken the king's commandment were gone down into the secret places in the wilderness.
You hear that? Have broken the king's commandment. Not the Most High's, the king's commandment. Antiochus IV Epiphanes, the Seleucid ruler. Read on.
They pursued after them a great number, and having overtaken them, they camped against them and made war against them on the Sabbath day.
On the Sabbath day. Now, these brothers, this group were the Hasidians, because they were righteous ones, and they didn't fight on the Shabbat. Man, it's the Shabbat. We're not fighting. We fight, we break the Most High's law. But that's going to change. Let's continue to read.
Salakia. And they said unto them, let that which ye have done hitherto suffice. Come forth and do according to the commandment of the king, and ye shall live.
Okay, come on.
But they said, we will not come forth, neither will we do the king's commandment to profane the Sabbath day.
Right. That's the Hasidians. Read on.
So then they gave them the battle with all speed. Howbeit they answered them not, neither cast they a stone at them, nor stopped the places where they lay hid, but said, let us die in our innocency. Heaven and earth shall testify for us that ye put us to death wrongfully.
Go ahead.
So they rose up against them in battle on the Sabbath, and they slew them with their wives and their children and their cattle to the number of 1,000 people.
Okay, because they didn't fight back. They said, no, we're not going to break the Shabbat. We're just going to take low, we're not going to fight back. We're not going to get into a battle or with the Greeks, with the Seleucids. We're going to die, and the world is going to look at the innocents. Okay, the Most High is going to see this thing, and the Most High is going to reward the Seleucids. He's going to reward the Greeks, Antiochus IV Epiphanes and his army. Come on.
Now when Mattathias and his friends understood,
he's going to reward them, repay them for killing the Israelites, okay, wickedly. Go ahead.
Now when Mattathias and his friends understood hereof, they mourned for them right sore. And one of them said to another, if we all do as our brethren have done, and fight not for our lives and laws against the heathen, they will now quickly root us out of the earth.
Okay, read on.
At that time, therefore, they decreed, saying, whosoever shall come to make a battle with us on the Sabbath day, we will fight against him. Neither will we die all, as our brethren that were murdered in the secret places.
Okay, so they made a decree right then. They said, look, I know it's a Sabbath, but if any come to battle with us, we're going to battle back. We're not going to do like our brothers did, just stand there, sit there, or got on their knees and prayed and bowed or what have you. No, the decree is we're going to fight. We're going to fight for our lives. We're going to fight for the lives of our family, our wives, our children, and our cattle. Okay, we're going to battle. This is a new decree. See, come on.
Then there came unto him a company of Hasideans, who were mighty men of Israel. Right,
those were the same ones that didn't want to fight. Okay, so now you had the other Hasidians coming to him and say, hey, what they're doing, it makes sense. That decree that they gave out, that makes sense. We got to fight. If we don't, we're going to die. Read on.
Even all such as were voluntarily devoted unto the law. Also that they fled for persecution joined themselves unto them, and were a stay unto them. So they joined their forces and smote sinful men in their anger, and wicked men in their wrath, but the rest fled to the heathen for succor.
Okay, the rest fled to the nations, man, to the heathens for help. But it say that the Hasidians, now the righteous, divine Hasidians were taking out the sinful men the sinful people along with the Maccabees. Read on.
Then Mattathias and his friends went round about and pulled down the altars. And what children soever they found within the coast of Israel uncircumcised, those they circumcised valiantly. They pursued also after the proud men, and the work prospered in their hand. Continue on.
Read to 48.
So they recovered the law out of the hand of the Gentiles, and out of the hand of kings. Neither suffered they the sinner to triumph.
So they went to war. They started this revolution. Okay, let's go from here. Let's go to 1 Maccabees, the 7th chapter, and the 13th to the 18th verse. Let's turn a few pages over. 1 Maccabees, the 7th chapter, from the 13th to the 18th verse.
Verse 13. Now the citizens were first...
I want to keep tapping into that word, the Hasidians, the Hasidic Jew. Not the Europeans out here. We're talking about the Israelites. Read on.
Now the Hasideans were the first among the children of Israel that sought peace of them.
Now, this story, you have to read this whole chapter. You would have to go all the way up to the first verse, because there was an Israelite by the name of Alcimus. He was of the seed of the priests. So he was connected with the enemy. So the Hasidians trusted him because he was of the priesthood, of the seed of the priests. So they opened up and they allowed him to come in. He was using deception. And the Hasidians end up being killed because of what? Being too humble. Okay, this is a seed of the priest. This man is a priesthood. He's of the lineage of the priest. I know he would do us well. He won't deceive us. Continues.
For they said, one that is a priest of the seed of Aaron has come with his army, and he will do us no wrong.
Right, see?
So he spake unto them peaceably, and sware unto them, saying, we will procure the harm neither of you nor your friends. Whereupon they believed him.
See, the Hasidians believe his sayings. Alcimus, read on.
Howbeit he took of them 60 men, and slew them in one day,
right,
according to the words which he wrote.
Okay.
The flesh of thy saints have they cast out, and their blood have they shed round about Jerusalem, and there was none to bury them.
Right.
Wherefore the fear and dread of them fell upon all the people, who said, there is neither truth nor righteousness in them, for they have broken the covenant and oath that they made.
Right. Read the 19th verse.
After this removed Bacchides from Jerusalem,
right,
and pitched his tents in Bezeth, where he sent and took many of the men that had forsaken him, and certain of the people also. And when he had slain them, he cast them into the great pit.
Right. Now, read the 20th verse to find out who Alcimus is.
Then committed he the country to Alcimus,
right,
and left him with a power to aid him. So Bacchides went to the king.
Okay, now read the 21st verse. This is going to tell you and show you who Alcimus is. Read on.
But Alcimus contended for the high priesthood.
He was Israelite. So that's why the Hasidians allowed him and trusted him, because they was righteous men. They said, look, this is one of the priesthood, of the seed of the priest. He can do us no harm. But yeah, he was the one that got up in there and he killed them and destroyed them, because he was looking for a position and power anyway. You see there? He was contending and battling for the priesthood, for power. Okay, now let's jump from here. Let's go to the Bible now. Let's go to the book of Psalms, the 79th chapter. And let's read the 2nd verse to the 7th verse. Psalms, the 79th chapter. From the 2nd verse to the 7th verse.
Okay. Psalm 79 and verse 2.
2 to 7. Come on.
The dead bodies of thy servants have they given to be meat unto the fowls of the heaven.
Okay.
The flesh of thy saints unto the beasts of the earth. Their blood have they shed like water round about Jerusalem, and there was none to bury them.
Okay, this is going into what happened to the Hasidians. Go ahead.
We are become a reproach to our neighbors, a scorn and derision to them that are round about us. How long, Yahweh, wilt thou be angry forever?
How long, the Most High, will you be angry with your people forever? Come on.
Shall thy jealousy burn like fire?
Read on.
Pour out thy wrath upon the heathen that have not known thee, and upon the kingdoms that have not called upon thy name.
You hear what the Israelites asked? How long, Lord, wilt thou be angry forever with us? Shall thy jealousy burn like fire? Shall you be angry forever with us? And then they said, look, pour out your wrath upon the heathen. The nations that have not known you, get them. Let us come back, get them. You know, have mercy upon us. Okay, continue.
For they have devoured Jacob and laid waste his dwelling place.
Okay, now let's go back into the Apocrypha. This is going to be the last scripture. Let's go to 2nd Maccabees, the 14th chapter.
Oops.
And let's read the 6th verse.
14th chapter?
Yeah, second Maccabees, the 14th chapter, and read the 6th verse.
2nd Maccabees, chapter 14 and verse 6. Those of the Jews that be called Hasideans.
Right, there go again, the Hasidians.
Whose captain is Judas Maccabeus.
Right, this is when they joined Judas. Okay, and Judas became their captains, but the Hasidians was out there first. Okay, they was out there first because they was always they was always into the laws of the Most High. They was always pious ones. That's what Hasidians mean, pious ones. Okay, continue.
Nourish war and are seditious, and will not let the realm be in peace.
Okay, now let's go from here. Well, they are saying this, the enemy is saying this, and Israelites is saying this about the Hasidians and Judas because they are rebelling against the wickedness. So they saying, look, the Hasidians and Judas Maccabees as their captains, they're not going to let the realm be in peace because of their righteousness. They want to get all the negative and sin up out of here. They're not going to let us do what we want to do, so they're not going to let us be at peace because they're trying to do the right thing, bring God's law and establish righteousness. We don't want that. You had Israelites didn't want that. Okay, jump from there. Let's go to the 17th verse. Read the 17th and the 18th verse.
Verse 17. Now Simon, Judas' brother, had joined battle with Nicanor, but somewhat was discomfited through the sudden silence of his enemies.
Now, Nicanor, you know, we have a feast day called Yom Nicanor, the day of Nicanor. Nicanor name mean the master of elephants. Okay. Now, the Israelites went into battle with Nicanor, an enemy, Syrian, and defeated him and made a feast day out of his death. It's called the Day of Nicanor. Read on.
Nevertheless, Nicanor, hearing of the manliness of them that were with Judas, and the courageousness that they had to fight for their country, durst not try the matter by the sword.
Okay, durst not to try this matter by way of warfare, because he have heard about the Maccabees. He have heard about the Hasidians. But brothers and sisters, the title of this class is what I wanted to get out to you. The title is The Hasidians and Hanukkah. The Hasidians are Hebrew Israelites. Okay, they're not the Europeans. Okay, like I said before, that the Hasidians came out of Eastern Europe in the 18th century, okay, 17th to 18th century, approximately. And the original Hasidians, the pious one, were Israelites. They was back there with Judas Maccabees, and they was fighting for the righteousness of the Most High. They was fighting for the laws of the Most High. They was fighting for the divine laws of the Most High. The Europeans today are not the true original Hasidians or the Hasidic Jew, okay, or the pious ones, okay, because they don't believe in the Most High. So they are not the original Hasidics. Okay, that's why I wanted to do this class, to get this short class, this information out. Like I said, they came out of Eastern Europe, and I have read that they came out of Poland. And this is around approximately the 17th century, or you can go into the 18th century, okay, to get the understanding and the information on the Hasidic Judaism emerging in Eastern Europe. They're not the originals. Mm-hmm. Just like the last class I did, that the Jewish people have no roots in the land of Israel. They have no roots. The originals, the original Jews, the biblical Jews, are the so-called Negroes. No, it's not really about color like a lot of people. Oh, it's not. No, it's not about color. Mm-hmm. It's about heritage. It's about seed. It's about bloodline. It's about the promise. It's about the covenants. It's about who you are as a people. It's about your fathers, your forefathers. Okay, because you have so-called Negroes just as light as, you know, some of the white people. Okay, but they are of the original seed, though. Mm-hmm. Okay, they're father. Okay, so that make them the Jews from the tribe of Judah, from the seed of the father, the seed of their ancestors. Okay, so brothers and sisters, I just want to get that out to you, and we're going to close. And I say shalom. Have a happy Hanukkah and new moon. Have a happy feast day. Shalom. All right, that's it.